Want help to grow your business? Download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.
Hello and welcome to Empire Builders. If you want to get wealthy, one of the easiest ways is to learn from the people that have already got there. Learn from the people that are already wealthy. There's no point reinventing the wheel. So today I'm joined by Jackie Clark, who's the lead partner at Deloitte Private in Sydney, Australia. Welcome to the show, Jackie.
Thank
you,
Good
to see
Chris.
you.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
And look, I'm dying to hear some of the secrets of these ultra high, kind of high net worths, because you deal with high net worths and ultra high net worths, don't you?
I absolutely do.
Sounds good. Well, let's start off with the first basic thing is, can you ever get rich on a salary? Do any of these employees ever end up rich?
Look, I think it's absolutely possible, Chris, but there's definitely some considerations to becoming rich on a salary. One of the most important things is having a budget. Now, this is not something that typical salary and wage earners actually consider, but I think you have to be brutally honest with yourself when setting a budget. And I think one of the most common things, and we've got a great graphic to share with everyone, when you're on the journey with remuneration or with a salary, what's quite typical is, apart from things like travelling, you start to climb the corporate ladder, you have some kids, you get married, kids get married, whatever. You might get a bigger home, a bigger mortgage, and all these different considerations come to play. So
how many people do actually sit down and do a budget? Because even the accountants, they don't like doing budgets, do they?
No.
Well, especially when it comes to their home time.
Yeah, look, I think they're really painful. I know that a lot of the financial institutions now provide sort of really simple, and there's a lot of applications out there that can provide pretty simple cash flow forecasting tools, so you can put the obvious things in. The most important conversation I have with people is, first and primarily, what does it cost to open your door at home? So what are the fixed costs that you've got? And I mentioned about being brutally honest, because I think you have to challenge yourself on what are the costs that I need to incur. So we've got school fees, we've got mortgages or rent, we've got different rates. We might have our latest Netflix subscription or Foxtel. You've got the newspaper coming in the door. You might have the gardener. There's lots of different costs.
And it's all the direct debits and the things on your credit card you never realise. You think, I earn 50,000 or 100,000, you think it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's all that stuff. And unless you count it, you just don't know where it's going.
Yeah, look, I think a great thing to do there is have a register of all of those monthly direct debits off your cards. And we all love using cards because we get great points to fly around the world with. But it is important to acknowledge those, because sometimes you may no longer need that service and it continues to be charged on your credit card as well.
And I guess a lot of this comes down to mindset as well, because rather than think of going to the accountant or setting a budget's a depressing thing, think of it as, I want to find ways that I can have more money for more investing or more holidays, so treat it as a positive spin rather than the negative spin.
Yes, I think it's important to acknowledge what your own habits are and think about it's the essentials versus non-essentials, so actually having that consideration as well.
Because would the majority of people live beyond their means?
Look, I think I mentioned this graphic before because it's quite normal that as your income goes up, so does your spending. So we keep on this never-ending sort of roundabout, which is income goes up, expenses go up. So it's important to see where you can fix those to then create that gap, if you like, which is the bit that gets put aside for the rainy day. And I like the idea of putting some money aside for a rainy day.
So I guess like a diet, how do you know if your budget's really that sustainable?
That's a good question. I haven't thought of it that way, and you're an expert on diet, so so I don't have the answer. I think what's important is it's got the key things in it. So you've got an income coming in and you've got the key expenses going out as a starting point. I tend to put a little bucket in budgets, a bucket of general expenditure. So you've got, call it a slush fund, but a little bit of money that says this might be going out because I'm going to dinner more times a week or I'm going out to the movies more. So there's a little bucket there that maybe caters for some of those discretionary items.
Because look, to take it to an extreme, we had some clients that went through it and they basically made sure that all of their payments went out on day one, and if they're putting it on their credit card, then they transfer that amount to a savings account to pay that credit card, and they literally took the rest out in cash. And they had something like 15 boxes in their lounge or the kitchen to say, right, this is cinema money, this is spending, this is drinking, this is whatever. Yeah. And even though it sounds a super anal thing, and these people were earning a couple of $100,000, so it's not like they're like a student. But they actually found that they didn't actually spend all of that money because they had to physically see it and take it out. At the end of the month, they actually had a lot more money left over. So it's just creating those habits at an early age, isn't it?
I think it's really important to say what works for you. That's a really good example. Some people put some of their income into a separate bank account. That is that savings or that special fund. People put education money aside. Some people give to charity. So it's actually not a bad practice to put things to one side like that. Maybe not drawing it out of the bank and putting it in the baskets under the bed,
but again, if it works, it's who cares?
What works for you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and suddenly they see how much money they're taking out for coffees and things like that. Because quite often it is all those little things that just keep adding up.
Yeah. I mean, I like it from a discipline point of view. Budgeting does take a lot of discipline. But even if you said to yourself quarterly or twice a year, you'd sit down and reset. So where have I landed after my savings plan for the 6 months? I think it's a good idea to actually reflect on that at a point in time.
And again, I've said to a lot of clients is sometimes you might only need to do it once. That if you've got plenty of cash, you might not even need to do it. But for most people, if they want to go and be somewhere further on, they've got to find the money somewhere. Even if you just do it once, realise what the situation is, then you can put in a fix. You might not never need to do it again.
Yeah, look, I think that's right. What works for you is important in those circumstances.
And should you be looking at, I guess, what's essential and what's non-essential?
I mentioned that before. So again, I mean, going full circle in some respects, being brutally honest with yourself, there are some expenses that are essential. Netflix and Foxtel aren't. It depends. Maybe in your house it is, but I think it's actually good. Maybe you can have a mentor in the money sense, so somebody you can talk to and say, challenge me on this. Is this an essential expense, or is this an expense that rather than being weekly or monthly could be quarterly? Like a new pair of shoes, for example.
Because no one really wants to be told or dictated to around this kind of stuff.
No.
But again, it's, as you say, it's having a mentor. So again, I guess a lot of these high net worth and ultra high net worth clients, they've got mentors and advisors that would coach them around these kind of things.
Yeah, look, I think what's important for everybody is to find people that can support you, that have a strength that you don't necessarily have. Yeah.
And getting the advice from the other person. Because again, a lot of the times then renting things rather than owning them can be a major difference. Like boats is probably an easy example.
Yes, it's certainly better to rent one than own one. I think you're lining me up there, Chris. Boats are a lifestyle asset, as you know, and the decision to rent or buy it means lots of different things. Security comes with buying in a different way to what it does with renting, if we're talking about a home, for example. So, again, a really important cash flow consideration for anyone looking at rental prices in major cities in our country, that rent is really high. So being on the receiving end of that and a never-ending potential increase on rent can have a major impact on your budget.
And also, I guess, having the mindset that you can be open to different ways of thinking, because I think for a lot of places around the world, your main family home, most people want to own their family home. But then when you go to Asia and you see a lot of expats, say from the UK or the US or from Australia, that are working in Hong Kong, Singapore, because they're not seeing themselves as being permanently there, they're completely open to the renting. And so it's not seen as a kind of a social stigma that you're a renter.
Yeah.
And so if it works in Asia, why not bring it home to the UK, to America or Australia and say, well, why don't we carry on? Do we have to live in our own home?
Yeah. I mean, I think renting gives you great flexibility. And I know you're a big fan of it, but there is two sides to that. And I think the Australian dream is still to own your own home. And with interest rates as low as they are in Australia, there is obviously some upside to structuring your income and outgoings in that way. So, again, what's right for you.
So certainly be open to it. So look, you said right at the start you thought as an employee then there's definitely, you can get wealthy and the rest of it.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the benefits, whether it's tax or otherwise, to being an employee?
Yeah, look, one of the things about being an employee is you can salary sacrifice. The other thing is it is a little more reliable potentially than
you get
running
paid
your
every
own
month.
You do. So that is a really positive thing that you can rely on. So maybe there's some less risk with being an employee, but you can salary sacrifice some things. You can put additional. The other thing is it's a good way of building up your superannuation. So we obviously have compulsory super in Australia, but there is actually. It locks you in a little bit more. You have consistent or regular income. And I think that's where the reliability factor does help with people with savings plans and with budgets.
Now, also on the show, we're talking about kind of property business and shares, and for most of it, it means borrowing money from the banks. When it comes to bank lending, banks all around the world, they love employees, don't they? Because they get paid regularly.
They do. And look, there's a third, like an independent third party confirming that you're an employee, that you have an income. It's very different to a business owner saying that, and I'm paying myself this amount of money. So it's, I think the institutions like that because it's an independent or a third party giving that acknowledgement.
Yeah. So look, one of the big things I learned from this is that there's a lot of people that blame their circumstances and say, I can't get rich because I'm an employee, or I'm not paid enough money, or I haven't got my own business, I haven't got the latest idea. But ultimately, there's a lot of wealthy people around the world and they haven't come from the best circumstances. So I think a lot of it is really accepting your own circumstances, saying, I can do something in my situation, getting some right advice, and then moving from there. Now, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back soon. Welcome back to Empire Builders. Today we're talking to Jackie Clark, a lead partner at Deloitte Private in Sydney, Australia, and we're talking about the characteristics of ultra high net worth and high net worth clients. So before the break we were talking about employees, and you're saying, look, there's no excuse, you can get rich as an employee. I always thought when I was younger, someone's a businessman, oh God, they're wealthy. So is business for everyone?
That's a really good question, Chris. One of the most fun things I've experienced in my career is actually coaching people around this decision, which is, as say, an executive in a corporate organisation, somebody who's looking to get out or be their own boss. Is it right for you? And it's quite interesting to challenge people on that. Understand the critical thing is understanding what you need to do in setting up your own business, but also does this circumstance suit you? There are a lot of stresses associated with owning your own business.
Oh no, I went through it.
Yeah, I mean, think of the times when you had your regular salary coming in. It's very different when the buck stops with you. So one of the first things is just saying, do you understand what this means, setting up your own business? What plans have you made from a cash flow point of view to get you to this starting point?
Because you suddenly realise all the administration in a company, like the HR and the accounts and the payables and the receivables, all this kind of stuff, you just don't have to deal with. As an employee, you deal with your job 35 or 40 hours a week. Yep. As a business owner, you've got to do all the other stuff, and then you've got to try and get to that, and you're the last to get paid.
That's exactly right. And that's why I think for most people setting up a business, we often talk about, when do the rewards come? So I think the first most important thing about those rewards coming is quite typically it's somewhere after year one and maybe into year two. So what planning have you done beforehand? I love it when you talk about all those things like bills and cash and pay. That's quite foreign to people who've come from a corporate role. There's always someone else to do that stuff. But when you're actually driving your business forward with your clear vision, it's very different to do that from 9 to 5 or 8 till 6, but then come home and do all of the administration that's associated with it.
Because it depends on your training. Because I think I'm lucky enough that I was an accountant. So doing 5 years of accounting training, you learn law, you learn business administration, some of those things, and finances and P&Ls. It's almost easy for an accountant. Yeah. But if you have someone that's, say, purely in a sales or marketing kind of role, they've never had to deal with those kind of sides.
No, look, and I think accountants can make great business managers. The question is, are they leaders in those roles as well?
Yeah, so from a downside as an accountant, you never spoke to anyone.
No.
You weren't allowed to.
It's not like that.
And so
it's changed a lot.
Yeah, is as an accountant, as a business owner, you've got to learn how to sell and to market. And I always thought marketing, that's like a whole waste of money. They're just having fun and parties. But selling, if you can't sell, you haven't got a business.
One of the best things, or what I like about what you've done, is surround yourself with people who can support you. So as a business owner, I think the first thing is, what are my strengths and what are my development needs or weaknesses? Who can support me with those weaknesses or development areas? So we've got mentors, coaches. Then there's some other great organisations in Australia, like the Entrepreneurs Organisation or Family Business Australia, or in fact, more recently I've been working with the Private Wealth Network. But they're great groups of people that can support you.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.